Chapter 1859. Xiaoya awakens. Meanwhile, outside Wushang City, Feng Ruqing stopped in her tracks, coldly looking at the crowd that appeared out of nowhere. She smirked. It looks like these people have made preparations and will never let Tang Yin escape easily. Cousin, you take the girls. I will stop these people. Nailan Jing was hesitant. He was not at ease leaving Feng Ruqing alone here. Cousin, there's no time. Take them away quickly. Boom. The gale lifted around Feng Ruqing, and a huge pot appeared above her head at the same time, setting off shocking waves in the entire street outside the city gate. The huge pot rushed forward and smashed those people violently. Tang Yin looked at Feng Ruqing and then looked at the two little girls in front of her. Brother Nailan, you take Xia and Dyer away. They'll stay with Xiaoqing. Her gaze was filled with determination. Xiaoyin. Nailan Jing looked flustered, trembled. He pressed her shoulders tightly and said, I won't leave you behind. It's even more impossible for me to leave when you're here. No, you must go. Tang Yin pushed Nailan Jing away. No one can leave if Xiaoqing does not stop them, and if I follow you, these people will still come after me. Their target is me. Tang Yin smiled. Brother Nailan, Dyer, and Xia's life are in your hands now. Dyer and Xia's life. In my hands. Nailan Jing trembled harder. His eyes were red, looking up at Feng Ruqing, who was blocking that group of people. He could help Tang Yin and Feng Ruqing if he stayed with them. But Xia and Dyer would be in danger. Xia suddenly cried out. I don't want to go. I want my mother. I'm not leaving either. Dyer's eyes were red but filled with stubbornness. Brother, I do not want to go. I want to stay. Nailan Jing closed his eyes slowly. He suddenly raised his hand, pulled Tang Yin into his arms and hugged her tightly. Me for extra chapters. Xiaoyin, the man murmured, but it caused Tang Yin's body to stiffen for a moment. He lowered his eyes. We will live and die together, so trust me. No matter where you go after this, I will accompany you and will not leave you alone. Tang Yin lifted her head and looked at the man's handsome face. This face was familiar, so familiar that it was deeply etched in her mind. Brother Nailan, wait for me. Nailan Jing loosened his embrace. He pulled Nailan Dyer with one hand, picked up Xia with the other, and finally looked behind him at Tang Yin and Feng Ruqing, turned around and walked not far away. As expected, seeing that Tang Yin did not leave, those people did not have much desire to chase after Nailan Jing. After all, the only one they wanted to catch was Tang Yin. It was none of their business if others ran away. Xiaoyin, Feng Ruqing descended from the sky and stood before Tang Yin. Why aren't you leaving? It's useless for me to go. Tang Yin shook her head and smiled. They're here to catch me. So they won't let me leave easily. Chapter 1860. I will never let you go, but, Xiaoqing, am not afraid. All these years, you and Brother Nailan have been protecting me, so much so that I relied on you guys too much, so, Tang Yin looked down before looking back up at Feng Ruqing and smiled sadly. That's why I can't even face some difficulties. In the future, I will not rely on you guys anymore. After she said this, she slowly turned around, looking directly at the group of skilled masters in the sky. If I follow you, will you let them go? The black-robed man sneered. We only want you. It has nothing to do with others. If you leave with us, of course we will not harm any people from General Manor. Good. Tang Yin's voice trembled. Her delicate and pretty small face was slightly pale in the sunlight. I'll go with you. Xiaoyin. Feng Ruqing took Tang Yin's hand as she shook her head and turned her gaze to the crowd in the sky. Do you think they'll let us go if you follow them? These people have long wanted to make a move against Tianya, but they just never had the chance. They just want to take advantage of this matter to unite and kill Tianya. Feng Ruqing did not know what kind of conflict was there between Tianya and these people, but she clearly understood that these people would never let Tianya go easily. What's more, Feng Ruqing smiled. You all probably know about Xiaoyin's physique and have come for this reason, but Xiaoyin is only one person. All of you want her, so how do you want to divide her? The black-robed man sneered. Little girl, you think you can provoke us? We have long thought of this matter. We will catch this girl first and the strongest one will take her. Of course, others will not lose out because the one who gets her will also give out a lot of benefits to other people who contributed. Feng Ruqing looked down. Then there is no way out. Feng Ruqing held Tang Yin's hand tightly. I will not give her to you. Little girl, why do you have to be like that? This girl just needs to cooperate with us and she won't lose her life. If you insisted on keeping her, you will lose your life. What? Feng Ruqing closed her eyes. Because this is the promise I made back then. Xiaoyin had chosen her and given up the Tang family. So, How could she bear to let her suffer in her life? Therefore she would never let her go. Me for extra chapters. The moment Feng Ruching opened her eyes, a long black sword appeared before her. At the same time, a man with a cold aura appeared in the sky. This man looked so handsome, but his face was ghastly pale. What was even more frightening was, he was a soul. The man raised his hand, took the black sword, and rushed toward those people in the sky. He used this black sword very well because he was the black sword soul, and soon he was already in front of those people. Xiao Qing. Tang Yin was anxious, tears flowed down her delicate face. You let go of me. I can't drag you guys down with me. Shut up. Feng Ruching looked back at Tang Yin. Just stay by my side and don't talk too much. I'll never let you go. Chapter 1861. Something happened to Qing'er. Tang Yin wanted to say something, but when she saw Feng Ruching's fierce expression, she finally fell silent and stood aside obediently. Up in the sky, the huge pot slammed down, making waves of shock, and in an instant, it landed in front of those people. However, there were so many enemies that even the huge pot could not stop them. Little Soul was also shocked that these people could hurt him. But soon Little Soul calmed his mind, and in a moment he was already in front of those people. Feng Ruching held Tang Yin's hand tightly and took a few steps back. However, just as she was about to turn around, several middle-aged men had already descended from the sky, blocking them from leaving. Tang Yin panicked a little. She subconsciously grabbed Feng Ruching's arm. She was a bit scared as this was the first time she faced such a great danger. Feng Ruching did not speak, soothingly patted Tang Yin's arm. She slowly raised her head, gazing at the group of people in front of her. At this moment, inside a small courtyard in the mountain forest, a young man sat with his back to Nan Xian, the cold sweats on his head rolled down. His handsome face was a little pale with pain. A heart palpitation somehow made him tremble a little. That feeling was so strong that he began to fidget. Nan Xian sat behind the young man with eyes closed. A light wind danced around him, lifting his robes. Suddenly he spat a mouthful of blood. He opened his eyes abruptly, panicked. Something happened to Qing? But he was almost able to seal the demon inside Feng Chen's body temporarily, and it took at least a day and a night. Feng Chen rose abruptly. He turned to look at Nan Xian. You are faster than me. Hurry back. I'll catch up later. Nan Xian looked at the young man and nodded slightly. Me for extra chapters. He moved like the wind. In an instant he landed not far away outside the courtyard. Lu Yining had been waiting outside from the time Nan Xian started treating Feng Chen. She was a little panicked as she saw Nan Xian leaving before he fully sealed the demon inside Feng Chen's body. She stood up, stretching out her arms to block Nan Xian from leaving. Master Feng can't hold out much longer. You can't leave him now. If the demon is not completely sealed this time, I'm afraid that there won't be next time. Nan Xian did not say anything anymore, much less even touching her. A powerful force surged out of him, sending Lu Yining flying away. She coughed out a mouthful of blood, and when she raised her eyes, she saw that the man in white robes had already disappeared. Her eyes sunk. Seeing how Feng Chen also wanted to leave, she panicked and rushed forward to block his way. Master Feng, you know that you can no longer delay it, but why did you still allow him to leave? Lu Yinin's face was soaked with tears. You guys just felt that something has happened to her and have not received any news. Just because of this feeling. You do not even care about your own life? Chapter 1862. Something happened to Qing'er. Her voice tinged with sadness, but her gaze was always fixed upon Feng Chen. Feng Chen stopped in his tracks and glanced at Lu Yining coldly. We will never ignore this even if this is only an illusion or our own overthinking. He raised his hand and pushed Lu Yining aside. His expression displayed decisiveness with an unquestionable choice. Lu Yining was a bit stunned, staring dumbly at Feng Chen. Her face was pale and full of grief. But why? I only care for him. She did not want the demon to take over his body and hurt him. Why was he so unaware of her concern? Don't go. Seeing that Feng Chen was about to leave, Lu Yining panicked, went forward and hugged Feng Chen's leg. She cried, Master Feng, please don't go. You've not recovered yet. I'm afraid I'll never see you again in this life. Please? Feng Chen stiffened and closed his eyes slowly. He had always been cold to Lu Yining these days. He had allowed her to stay only to fulfill his promise. However, Feng Ruching. She was his life. I will never regret it even if I can't return. Feng Chen set off a gust of wind, knocking Lu Yining away. He walked away and did not even look back at Lu Yining. Lu Yining was paralyzed on the ground, looking up at Feng Chen's departing figure. Tears streamed down her face. Her eyes were full of sadness and pain. "Why," she hissed, "she is someone else's wife. Why do you have to fight so hard for her?" Lu Yining did not understand. No one could prove that Feng Ruqing was really in danger. It was only an intuition. No one knew whether it was true or false. Nanxian was only one step away from saving Feng Qin, but he still left because of this matter. And Feng Qin, he did not even care about his life. "I do not understand. I've done everything for you, but in the end, you still decide to sacrifice your life for another person." With tears in her eyes, she laughed out coldly. At first she thought she only had to be by Feng Qin. Whether he was thinking of others or indifferent toward her, it did not matter. Me for extra chapters. She only wanted him to be safe and sound. It was only now she finally realized that everything she had done for him was useless. Feng Qin was willing to sacrifice his life for that woman, and she could do nothing to stop him. Lu Yining was sad and angry. "Young Lady Lu," a servant came out from the courtyard and helped Lu Yining up from the ground. Looking at Lu Yinyan's miserable appearance, the servant sighed softly. For the past 3 years, young Lady Lu has stayed with Master Feng and taken good care of him. Every time Master Feng passes out, she does not leave even for a second until he wakes up. She never complains, no matter how cold-faced Master Feng is. Until today, there is only grief and anger left in young Lady Liu's eyes. "Xiao Yu, why did I go out of my way to care for him only to have him neglect his life for others? I could care less about him thinking of another woman or how he treats me, but I can't allow him to disregard his life for others." Chapter 1863. Something happened to Qing'ai. Lu Yining stood up trembling. Her steps were a little unsteady. Her eyes were full of grief as she looked in the direction in which Feng Qin left. "Young Lady Lu, the person that Master Feng is thinking about is married. You are the person who will accompany Master Feng in the future. He will know how good you are sooner or later." All the servants in this manor liked young Lady Lu very much because she treated everyone like her own family. Lu Yining closed her eyes, shook her head and smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, it's already too late. Lu Yining finally opened her eyes and looked in the direction Feng Chen had left again. She turned around and slowly walked into the manor. She was somewhat staggering, as if she would fall at any moment. Outside Wushang City, blood flowed into a river. A trickle of blood hung from the corner of Feng Ruqing's mouth, but she still clutched Tang Yin's arm, looking at the group of people in front of her coldly. Suddenly, her body was like the wind, and in a moment she had fallen into the crowd of that group of people. She did not let go of Tang Yin's hand. No matter what, she must protect her from these people. Tang Yin was helpless and terrified. She had cultivated hard these few years, but she could never beat these skilled masters no matter how hard she tried. All this time, it was Xiao Qing who was protecting her. "Xiao Qing, don't mind me." Tears flowed from the corners of the young girl's eyes. She raised her eyes to look at the woman beside her. Her gaze was firm and solemn. "I can't let this continue. Otherwise Xiao Qing will die because of me." She was so useless. She could not drag Xiao Qing down. "I've just told you to shut up." Feng Ruqing wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. "It's good that you are by my side. No one can hurt you. I've said that I will protect you." Bang. The force from another strike at Feng Ruqing's back shoved her forward. Blood spurted out of her mouth violently, making her face pale. However, she still did not retreat and once again went toward the group in front of her. The number of enemies was large, and it was estimated that nearly half of the mainland's skilled masters had come to take Tang Yin away. Even the huge pot could not stop them. Me for extra chapters. Tang Yin looked at these people and then looked sideways at Feng Ruqing. "Xiao Qing." Tang Yin lowered her head and smiled. Her smile was as bright as the sun, instantly clearing up all the gloominess. "I'm very happy to have met you in this life." Because of Feng Ruqing, she left the Tang family and had a goal that she wanted to pursue in this life. She never regretted the choice she had made back then. Tang Yin took out a dagger and held it tightly. This dagger refracted a cold aura, making one's heart tremble. Tang Yin's eyes were full of determination, raised the dagger and ruthlessly stabbed into her heart. "Since all the fighting is because of me, and Xiao Qing won't leave without me." Chapter 1864. Something happened to Qing'ai. It will all be over when I die. These people she loved would not have been hurt for her sake. However, before the dagger pierced into her heart, Feng Ruqing knocked her unconscious with a palm strike. Tang Yin fainted, falling into Feng Ruqing's arms. The dagger in her hand also fell, clanging to the ground. After seeing that Tang Yin was unconscious, Feng Ruching quietly sighed in relief. This is much quieter. She looked up. Her eyes fell upon these people in front of her. She smiled coldly and rushed toward them. 9 Gate. Hui Yu rubbed his brow hard. He had been feeling uneasy these past few days. It felt as if something was about to happen to the mainland. Just then, one of the disciples came in a hurry, cupped his fist and said, "Your Holiness, it seems that a beast man has appeared in Tianya's manor, and now the skilled masters from half of the mainland have gone there." "What did you say?" Hui Yu jerked up, his gaze was tense. Tianya's manor. The information about the beast man has been leaked? Sure enough, that person had still overheard the matter in the first place, and it must have been him who leaked the news as well. However, he thought that he had found that person in time to stop the spread of this news, but he did not expect the information to be leaked after all. If they had attacked Tianya's manor, then Nan Qiu? He gritted his teeth and said, "Send someone to Tianya's manor. Immediately. Make sure to ensure the safety of the young lady." Bang. The door of the room was suddenly kicked open. A woman in a light green dress walked in hurriedly. She looked panicked and there was impatience in her eyebrows. "What were you guys talking about? What happened to Tianya's manor? What happened to Maiden Feng and Xia? Chiu Hui, this has nothing to do with you. We will handle it ourselves." Hui Yu frowned lightly. If Chiu Hui had helped them bring Nan Qiu to 9 Gate the other day, so many things would not have happened. Me for extra chapters. Chiu Hui's face was pale and furious. She stepped forward fiercely and tugged at Hui Yu's lapel. "Tell me what happened in Tianya's manor. Tell me." Hui Yu froze. He had never seen Chiu Hui so angry before. He pondered for a moment and said, "There is a girl in Tianya's manor who is a beast man. She has a special physique and can be used to boost one's cultivation. Now she is being pursued and many skilled masters have attacked Tianya's manor." Chiu Hui trembled harder. Dang it. She had seen that girl before. However, she never thought that someone would leak this information. "This matter. Is it your doing?" Chiu Hui asked through gritted teeth. Hui Yu frowned. "Do you think we would do such a thing?" Chiu Hui sneered. "Who knows? You can separate a mother and daughter for your selfish interests and plan to kidnap other people's children. So what else is there that you can't do?" Chiu Hui. Hui Yu was a little angry. "I would never do this no matter what. Someone overheard our conversation before it leaked out. It wasn't our intention to do so." Chiu Hui laughed sarcastically and swung her hand away. "In any case, this matter is related to you. I will not settle accounts with you for now. The people in Tianya's manor are still waiting for me." Chapter 1865. Something happened to Qing'er V after Chiu Hui said that. She turned around decisively and walked out of the study room. Her pace was firm with an unquestionable decision. In the beginning she was already indebted to Qianya for his kindness. She had stayed in Tianya's manor for 2 years, and she had also lived with Xia for 2 years. Therefore she was so angry after discovering that Hui Yu intended to snatch Xia away. None of the members of 9 Gate were on her side. She was here alone, unable to go against so many people, and was eventually forced to stay within 9 Gate. Initially she came to Hui Yu to persuade him not to disturb Xia and Feng Ruching again. However, what she heard was the news of the imminent destruction of Tianya's manor. Hui Yu looked at Chiu Hui's departure and did not stop her. After all, saving Qiu was the most important thing right now. Besides, those people in Tianya's manor were all Kai's family. Of course, he had no intention to touch her family. He just wanted Qiu to come to 9 Gate to receive the best training for her future. Chiu Hui left 9 Gate hurriedly. She did not look back. Her firm gaze was focused on the sky not far away. In a flash, she had reached an altitude of 100 feet in the sky. "Tianya Xia, you must wait for me." Outside the city gate, Feng Ruching was a little shaky as if she could not support herself anymore. However, after looking at Tang Yin who was on her shoulders, her heart was steady again. No matter what, she could not let Tang Yin get hurt. "Girl, you'd better put down the little girl in your hand or else, I'm afraid you'll die here today." Ah. The ear-piercing sound of laughter in the front echoed in the sky for a long time. From dusk to dawn and then from dawn to dusk, it had been 5 days and 5 nights. The battle had not ended. Feng Ruching wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her body staggered a little. She thrust the sword in her hand hard into the ground. Her gaze remained firm. "Me for extra chapters. Are you okay?" Little Soul descended from the sky and landed in front of Feng Ruching, looking worried. In the beginning he was trapped within the black sword by Feng Ruching and tried every way to escape her control. But now, Perhaps it was because they had been together for quite a long time that Little Soul's attitude had changed a lot. Feng Ruching turned to look at Little Soul. She then lowered her eyes and said, "Fu Qin, if I die, will his soul disappear?" "It won't." The voice was hoarse. It was unclear if he was crying. "Oh, that's good." Feng Ruching smiled. She raised her hand, took back the black sword, and locked it inside the medium with Little Soul. Until now, every time she encountered danger, she disregarded Fu Chen and Qing Han's wishes and forced them into the medium. So this time it was the same. After perceiving the danger, she shut them up. As her strength increased, she could control the medium smoothly. Without her consent, Fu Chen and Qing Han could not take even one step out of the medium. "Qing Han, Fu Chen, you are safe in the medium. Maybe after 1,000 years or 10,000 years, you will meet other masters and then, you will be able to come out." Chapter 1866. Something happened to Qinger Vi. Feng Ruching smiled. "Remember to tell State Preceptor, if I can't accompany him in this life, I will definitely come back to him in the next life. He can't escape from me." After these words fell, Feng Ruching decisively cut the transmission to the medium. She did not bear to hear Qing Han's ghostly cry. The only pity was that the medium could not keep people. Otherwise she had thrown Tang Yin in too and had nothing to worry about. Buzz? The huge pot made a sad sound. It flew toward Feng Ruching, raising waves of shock and smashing into the enemies in front of her. Unfortunately, the number of enemies was such that it could not even expel them. Moreover, among these people, countless skilled masters were almost as strong as Qinya. The young girl on her shoulder moved her fingertips and frowned. She was about to slowly awaken when Feng Ruching once again slammed her fist down, directly knocking her unconscious again. The sword light came flying. Feng Ruching raised the sword to block. However, a few days and nights of fighting had drained her energy. The long sword still violently pierced through her chest. Blood seeped out and stained her dress red. Suddenly a silver light flashed over. It was a huge silver snake and very beautiful. Its body gradually elongated and slowly transformed into a woman with a stunning face. She rushed toward Feng Ruching and caught her from falling to the ground. Tears streamed down her face. Not Emperor, there were two most important people in her life. One was her daughter. The other one was her savior. Not Emperor. I was blocked by those people and came late. Sorry, I'm really sorry. You protected all the girls well back then. But we can't protect you. I'm sorry. She held Feng Ruching tightly, heartbroken. Feng Ruching raised her eyes slowly and handed Tang Yin in her arms to the woman. Xiaoya, take her away and leave this place. Xiaoya shook her head. Her smile was firm and her eyes contained tears. Me for extra chapters. Well, leave together. If they were going to leave, they would leave together. Cough. Feng Ruching covered her chest that was oozing blood, and with a violent push, she pushed Xiaoya out. Go. Immediately. That's an order. Xiaoya, with Tang Yin in her arms, stumbled and fell to the ground. She looked at Feng Ruching dumbly and finally shook her head. No, thousands of years ago, no one would go against the Ninth Emperor's words. If she told them to go, they would never stay. However, this time Xiaoya would no longer obey her words. It was up to her to decide whether to stay or go. Feng Ruching fell to the ground. She coughed blood and her face grew paler. However, she still stood up with her last strength, surrounded by everyone. The crowd sneered. Even if Feng Ruching was seriously injured, these people would not let her go. Suddenly, a powerful force headed toward Feng Ruching. Xiaoya was so shocked that her face turned pale. She hurriedly put Tang Yin on the ground and dashed up, blocking the force with her body. Chapter 1867. Something happened to Qinger Vi. However, Feng Ruching was facing people from all sides. Xiaoya only blocked one side for her, but there were three more sides. Powerful forces converged and came crashing down on Feng Ruching's body. She spurted a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Little Nine. A heart-rending scream came from the sky. Feng Ruching saw a black dragon flying through the sky and coming toward her in her blurred vision. The black dragon took the form of a young man in midair. He was dressed in black, with a face full of anger, filling the entire sky with his fierce aura. The crowd was stunned and looked at the young man in dismay, their eyes carrying shock. This dragon is made of surrounding spiritual qi? Only the creatures from the surrounding spiritual qi can do so. The young man's eyes were fixed upon Feng Ruching. From the time the blood gushed out until the woman's figure gradually fell to the ground, everything was suddenly moving in slow motion in his eyes. The young man rushed toward Feng Ruching and caught her body before it hit the ground. His voice was trembling and his heart almost stopped beating. Little Nine, I should not have left you because of that wild man. I should have stayed by your side. Please do not scare me. I was wrong. I will never leave you again. You abandoned me 1,000 years ago and you still want to abandon me now. Little Nine, I rushed back after I heard the attack in general manner, but I still did not arrive in time. Please do not leave me. I do not want to wait for you alone again. The young man hugged Feng Ruching tightly so that she would not feel cold. Xiaoya froze and looked at the woman in the young man's arms. A strong resentment and anger rose from the bottom of her heart. Why, in the previous life, those moralistic people had not spared the 9th emperor. Now these people still won't let her go. The 9th emperor had never done anything wrong. Once, those who liked her treated her like a god, and those who disliked her called her a devil. However, now these people wanted to take her daughter and hurt her just for selfish reasons. Aha, me for extra chapters. Xiaoya held her head tightly and endless anger surged out, turning her eyes red. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept by. The girl in the young man's arms was pulled away by someone and wrapped into those arms. Big Black looked up and met a cold face. He was so cold and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He looked at the woman lying calmly in his arms with a sword pierced into her chest, soaking with blood. He had promised to protect her for the rest of his life. But in the end he still got her hurt. Master, Qing Zhu poked its head out of his sleeve. It almost cried after seeing the lifeless Feng Ruching. Princess won't die. She won't die. People always said that evil men would live 1,000 years. This kind of evil person who always bullies snakes won't die so easily. Chapter 1868. Something happened to Qing'erva and Xian held Feng Ruching in his arms tightly. Qing Zhu felt that even the temperature in the sky had dropped quite a bit. Qing'er will not die. He wanted the person, even the king of hell did not dare to stop him. The man carried Feng Ruching, turned around and walked out of Wushang City. Some people were not afraid of death and had rushed up to block Nan Xian. This woman meddles with other people's business. She dug her own grave. Who allowed you to leave? Before the enemy could finish his words, fierce scorching flames suddenly surged out around Nan Xian and burnt all the people who blocked his way. The crowd froze. Nan Xian paused and turned around to Xiaoya behind him. Take her with you. I won't let the person Qing'er try to protect die here. Nan Xian's sudden appearance gave Xiaoya hope. If the 9th emperor is dead, he would have lashed out in anger and killed all these enemies in front of him. But he didn't. Nan Xian was in a hurry to take Feng Ruching away. This would certainly prove that Feng Ruching could still be saved. Otherwise he would have killed all these people. Xiaoya bent down and picked Tang Yin up from the ground, and she hurriedly followed after Nan Xian. Feng Chen had just rushed over and saw Nan Xian's cold face. He slowly looked down and in a flash, a pale familiar face reflected in his eyes, causing his mind to turn blank. He did not react even after Nan Xian had walked past him. He froze. Xiaoqing. She's dead? Feng Chen held his head, endless pain rushed to his heart, and his brain almost exploded. The girl lay on the bed soundlessly, a big dog sat next to her, accompanying her. The man in a suit kneeled beside the girl as the people around him kept reminding him that she would never wake up again. He did not believe it. She would come back if he waited for her. Me for extra chapters. No. The day he understood that she would never come back. He had completely lost her. He never felt scared and lost his hope even after his business rivals had backstabbed him because he knew she would always be waiting for him in their home every day. He was in great pain after he lost her. Even when someone sabotaged his car and he knew it but he did nothing. The car lost its control and flew out of the road and at that moment, all his pain suddenly disappeared and he finally felt relieved. These scenes appeared in Feng Chen's mind over and over again. His eyes became even redder, and he slowly put down his hands and stood up. Since he could no longer wait for her to come back, he would go to her. Because he feared that she could not take care of herself without him by her side, but it was so hard for him to find her, so hard to meet her again in this world. And these people took her away from him again. Everyone deserves to die. Everyone deserves to die. Chapter 1869. Something happened to Qing'er X. His dark eyes burned with fire, strong angry flames lifted from around his body, burning the surrounding trees to ashes. In the previous life he and she were siblings but not related by blood. A reorganized family brought them together. However, she was not happy in that family so he took her away without a second thought. The fire in his eyes burned more fiercely. A strong wind ruffled his robes, making him look a little bit crazy. No one knew he liked her in the previous life, and in this life he happened to be her brother. However, he never asked for anything in return. As long as he could see her and protect her, even only as a brother, he was already satisfied. I don't ask for anything else. I just want her to be in this world. Why do you have to take her from me? What? The crowd backed up, their eyes filled with horror and panic. This guy. It seems like he has lost his mind. He's crazy. Let's go. One of them turned around to leave, who knew in an instant, the young man was already behind him. Feng Qin grabbed him and punctured his heart fiercely. The young man pulled his bloody hand out of the body. He looked terrible. After hurting her, no one can leave this place. I won't spare any of you. All of you deserve to die. Every time the young man said a word, one person would fall into a pool of blood. The young man's eyes were filled with madness, and his body emitted a dark aura. Meanwhile, in general manner, the battle was still going on. Qinya was covered in blood and his robes were in rags. Even so, he was not the least bit distressed. Suyi, on the other hand, looked a little more wretched. Her arms were cut several times. The wounds were hideous. Of course, more seriously injured than Suyi was the white phoenix. Me for extra chapters. Its wings were half broken, but it still kept comforting Suyi. I'm fine, Suyi. Doesn't hurt at all. Maybe I can't fly without my wings, but I can still walk and jump. It won't affect my life. It doesn't hurt at all. The white phoenix's words made Suyi want to cry. Her eyes were red, full of heartache. When Qinger comes back, he'll ask her if she can heal your wings. It doesn't seem right being a phoenix but can't fly. It's all right. It's just that I won't be able to carry you to the sky in the future. The white phoenix smiled. An enemy suddenly rushed toward them. Suyi did not have time to speak more and simply continued to battle. Everyone was exhausted from the war that went on for several days and nights. If it were not for some herbal dishes to support them, they would have long lost their energy and collapsed. Oh, Qinger has given us all the herbal dishes, right? Suyi seemed to think of something. Her heart fluttered a little. If she is wounded, how will she heal and recover her strength? The white phoenix froze for a moment, somewhat stunned. A strong feeling of uneasiness surged to its heart, causing its expression to appear gradually anxious. Chapter 1870. Something happened to Qinger X. The white phoenix turned its head, and in a flash, a figure in a white robe came in from outside the courtyard. He held an unconscious woman in his arms. Qinya lowered his eyes and saw Feng Ruqing in Nanxian's embrace. His body stiffened and endless anger instantly invaded his heart, making his whole body explode with rage. Boom! Angry flames surged out, blasting the middle-aged man who stood in front of him, making him fall from the air and land in the middle of the crowd. Xiaoya hugged Tang Yin and followed behind Nanxian, but her gaze was locked upon the person in front of her. Her eyes were filled with grief, and she did not dare to let the others notice it. It was not until Nanxian carried Feng Ruqing and disappeared into the courtyard that the others began to react. The white phoenix rushed toward Xiaoya, panicked. What's going on? What happened to Qingqing? Xiaoya's heart sank in pain, still barely showing a smile. It's all right. He can save her. Yes, he can save her. Just like 1,000 years ago. She had saved him. How could the 9th emperor die in the hands of these people? Thousands of years ago, those people failed to kill her and ended up using Nan Changfeng to threaten her. So, in this life, no one else should be able to touch her. Xiaoya looked down. Although she tried to convince herself in her heart, again and again, her heart was still immersed in pain. Tianya's expression darkened as his grip around the long sword that was dripping with blood tightened. That person was his granddaughter. His most precious granddaughter. Now she was half dead and carried back by Nanxian. All of you people deserve to die. Tianya's red robes danced up wildly, his white hair floated in the wind. His murderous intent was so intense that it spread in the sky as he rushed toward the enemies. Inside general manner. Nanxian ignored the battle outside. He placed the young girl in his arms on the bed, moving very carefully, afraid that he might hurt her. Qinger, sorry I came too late. But I won't let anyone take you away from me. Master, Qingzhu stretched out its head and carefully said, Princess? She's dying. I'm afraid that there is no way to save her. Me for extra chapters. Snap. Nanxian raised his hand and flung Qingzhu away. Qingzhu's head instantly hit the door, the pain bringing tears to its eyes, and it could not control its tears as it looked at Feng Ruqing lying on the bed. Princess is dying, but why doesn't Master believe it? Princess had always bullied Qingzhu and threatened to turn it into snake soup, but it loved her. She was the only one who would stand by its master to the end. Now that she was gone, Qingzhu was sad too, but it was even more heartbreaking when Nan Xian could not accept this fact. Ill save Qinger? Nan Xian raised his hand, gently stroking the young girl's hair. His smile was as gentle as water. Master, Qingzhu crawled up to Nan Xian's side. It wanted to comfort him, but a fierce gust of wind suddenly surged around Nan Xian, sweeping away all the tables and chairs in the room. Only the bed where Feng Ruqing was lying remained untouched. Chapter 1871. He is Nan Changfeng? At this moment, what Feng Ruqing saw before her eyes were darkness. There was not a single ray of light. She walked in this darkness with some confusion, as if no matter how she walked, she could not reach the end. However, she had a nagging feeling that she had forgotten something. No matter how she tried to recall it, there was no way to remember. It seemed that something very important, or the most important person in her heart, had been forgotten. Jur, Jur, a voice was calling, breaking through the darkness. Jur. This call was so familiar that it made her heart ache a little. All right, she remembered. She was the 9th emperor, and the person she loved most was Nan Changfeng. Suddenly, a familiar figure leaped into her eyes. The handsome young man in a white robe with vertical lines on his eyebrows came to her. Feng Ruqing was just about to speak when the young man suddenly pulled her firmly into his arms. Jur, I've come for you. Feng Ruqing looked at the man in a daze, frowning. She knew that the person standing in front of her was someone she was familiar with and very close to, but she could see another identical face through his features. The difference was that that person did not have vertical lines on his eyebrows or silver hair. Nan? Changfeng? Feng Ruqing murmured. The young man looked down and smiled faintly. It's me. I'm Nan Changfeng. I've come to find you. Oh? Feng Ruqing nodded, her brows knitting. Where is this place? I feel like I'm forgetting something. I need to get out of this place. Do you have any way to leave? The young man pursed his lips and smiled. Jur, this is our home. Is it bad for us to stay in this place together? But I vaguely remember that someone is waiting for me. The person waiting for you is me. The young man raised his hand and touched Feng Ruqing's hair. Now that I'm here with you, there will be no one else. Jur, can you bear to abandon me again and leave me alone? He looked at Feng Ruqing pitifully. Feng Ruqing's heart softened. Yes, he is Nan Changfeng, the man I want to protect in this life. Changfeng, do you remember how I entered this place? Why was it all dark everywhere except for you? I can't see anything else. It is as though I am trapped in a world that I cannot leave. Me for extra chapters. She did not remember how she got here. Other than the fact that she was the 9th emperor and loved a man named Nan Changfeng, she had forgotten everything else. No matter how much she racked her brain, she could not seem to recall. Jur, I don't know why we are here, but I know that having you is enough. The young man stepped forward and approached Feng Ruqing. But whatever you want, this place will give it to you. The young man raised his hand and waved, and a courtyard stood in the darkness. The courtyard was luxurious like the courtyard she had on the mountain back then. Feng Ruqing turned to look at the courtyard. Her heart was still a little uneasy. Her lover was with her, but she felt like he was still thousands of miles away. A place that she could not reach for the time being. Jur, you look tired. Go and rest first. Don't worry. I will not let anyone hurt you again. The young man's gaze was deep and affectionate, just like it was back then. He always looked at her with such eyes before. That was why she could never forget him. Chapter 1872. His name is Nan Xian. At the same time, the entire Tianya's manor fell silent. Nan Xian stood at the head of the bed. His eyes were slightly closed. A faint light lingered around him. His forehead was covered in a cold sweat, and his handsome face was a bit pale at this moment. Qingzhu stood behind Nan Xian, looked at the man in front of him and asked, hesitating a little, Master, you want to send your soul into Princess' body again? Nan Xian used his soul to wake her up for the first time when she fell unconscious for Empress Nalan. However, back then he could easily send the main soul in. So why did it take so long to do so this time? Boom. Suddenly, a powerful force emanated from the bed, shaking the man's body, pushing him a few steps back. He opened his eyes, and there was a hint of exhaustion in his brows, but he seemed more cautious. There is a power in Qinger's body, and that power is like a wall that completely blocks my main soul from entering her body. Nan Xian walked toward the bed. Qingzhu was at a loss, not understanding what Nan Xian should do next. Nan Xian sat in front of Feng Ruqing, his fingers caressing her face gently. His fingertips were warm as his smile. I said that I will always protect you in this life, and I will fulfill my promise. The man closed his eyes slowly. At this moment, the light around his body was shining brightly. In this light, Qingzhu clearly saw a transparent figure separated from him. It was a young man in a white robe with beautiful silver hair. There was a vertical line between his eyebrows that made him look so stunning. Master. Qingzhu trembled a little. Your sudden progress and cultivation these years was all because of the main soul. Your strength will be affected if you lose him. However, Qingzhu failed in persuading him. Feng Ruqing was too important to him, so important that he would give up everything to bring her back to life. He might lose all his power or might be killed, but as long as Feng Ruqing could come back, then he would definitely do it. As the light faded, the man's hair slowly turned white. Me for extra chapters. Qingzhu stared at Nanxian sadly. It then turned its gaze again to Feng Ruqing, crying. Princess, Master has given too much for you, so you must come back. Without you he would be no more. Within the courtyard in the darkness, Feng Ruqing looked up, and she seemed to hear a voice calling out to her. However, the voice was too small, like there was a huge distance between them, and she could not hear what those people were saying no matter how she listened. Jur, Feng Ruqing turned her head, frowned and stood up. Changfeng, you really have nothing to hide from me? What exactly did I forget? The young man smiled sadly. Jur, how could I hide anything from you? Aren't we fine here? I can live here for the rest of my life as long as you're with me. I never think of leaving, so don't go either, okay? Chapter 1873. His name is Nanxian. Feng Ruqing stood in front of the young man and looked up at him. She and the young man had been together for some time, but she always felt that everything was not real here. And she did not know why. Even Nan Changfeng, who was standing in front of her, somewhat, did not exist. Felt like her imagination. Feng Ruqing was stunned and raised her hand to pinch the young man's cheek. I can feel him. Warm and soft. Yes, this is the real Nan Changfeng, not my imagination. Sorry, I shouldn't have doubted you. I just feel something weird. Even the time I spend with you, I feel that it's fake. Feng Ruqing shook her head with a bitter smile. She slowly turned around and gazed into the darkness around her. Besides, it's too boring to spend time here. I want to leave. The young man was stunned. He raised his hand and pulled Feng Ruqing's arm. He looked sad. Jur, don't you like me anymore? Feng Ruqing pursed her lips and was silent. Jur, you promised me at first that you would always take me with you, but if you leave now, you would never see me again. Could you bear to let me be in this darkness? Alone? The young man's gaze was fixed upon her. However, Feng Ruqing could not see her reflection in his eyes. In that instant, Feng Ruqing raised her hand and pushed his hand away fiercely. You are not Nan Changfeng. Who are you? Her face was cold as she shouted firmly. The young man froze for a moment, his gaze bewildered. What's wrong with you, Jur? I'm Changfeng. Don't you remember the time we once spent together? Nan Changfeng always listened to me. If I were to leave, he would have left with me. Feng walked toward the young man. Besides, you said at the beginning that you came here to find me. So why is it impossible to leave? The young man was anxious and took Feng Ruqing's hand. Jur, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Haven't I always been in your heart? Always been in my heart? Feng Ruqing suddenly trembled and she pressed her temples hard. She felt like those things that she had forgotten were about to come back to her. Just a little more? If Nan Changfeng has always been in my heart, then who is the person who has been keeping me company? The one I love. There should only be one person, right? And there can't be two. So, who is that person? Feng Ruqing clutched her head tightly and squatted on the ground. She frowned, trying desperately to recall all the lost memories. Mother, mother, a soft voice suddenly came crashing into her mind. Who's calling me? Me for extra chapters. Since when did I have a child? Why can't I remember it? Mother, don't you want Xia Xia anymore? Mother, why are you ignoring me? Xia Xia? Xia Xia. What a familiar name, bang. Suddenly, a crisp sound came from the side. Feng Ruqing stood up and turned around stiffly. All the darkness, like a barrier, was shattered by a punch. Light poured from the sky, filling the entire courtyard with light. The man seemed to come stepping into the light, stepping into her heart. The man in a white robe was as handsome as immortal, with silver hair and vertical lines between his eyebrows. Another Nan Changfeng? No, he's not Nan Changfeng. His name is Nanxian. Chapter 1874. Someone is still waiting for me, Qing. I've come to take you home. The man's voice was gentle, and it gave her a feeling of being in a different world. Feng Ruqing stepped forward and walked toward the man. Jure? Behind her came the anxious voice of a young man. Feng Ruqing turned around. Her gaze was as clear as water, but with a touch of determination. I've remembered all of it. You are not Nan Changfeng. Nan Changfeng has died. The person I love now is called Nan Xian. I was seriously injured not long ago and am unconscious now. You don't exist. That was why you told me that anything I want would appear here. But as long as I did not think of something, it was all darkness. I forgot being Feng Ruqing and only remembered myself as the 9th emperor, so the person who appeared was Nan Changfeng. Unfortunately, I have to return to my own world after all. Those I love and those who love me are still waiting for me over there. She turned around slowly and walked toward the silver-haired man. Feng Ruqing did not turn back again. Because the person behind her was already in the past, he was only a part of her imagination. She must return to the man named Nan Xian. The young man standing behind her did not move, nor did he try to pull her. He smiled faintly as his body turned into mist, slowly dissipating into the darkness. The courtyard also disappeared as if it had never appeared. Only the man in front of her, with light, guided her way forward. Qinger, the man extended his hand to her smilingly. I have finally found you. It took him all his strength and countless hours to break the barrier and to come to her side. Fortunately, she was still there, so that everything he had paid for was worth it. Feng Ruqing placed her hand on the man's palm. His palm was warm. It made her heart warm. Let's go home, me for extra chapters. The home that belonged to them. The darkness slowly changed into light and fell upon Feng Ruqing's body. Her eyes went black, and her whole person instantly lost consciousness. When she opened her eyes, a beam of sunlight poured in from outside the door and fell upon her face. She was used to seeing darkness, so she was a little uncomfortable with this bright sunlight. She used her hand to block the light and looked out through the tiny cracks in her fingers. A familiar and handsome face with long white hair came into vision. She stiffened. The man smiled faintly. Nan Xian, her fingers caressed the man's white hair. Your hair? Nan Xian's hair color was black like ink before, and Nan Changfeng's hair was silver. However, the man in front of her. He had white hair and he looked somewhat weak, making her feel a little sad. Chapter 1875. Her pain. Nan Xian. Feng Ruqing's heart beat fast and the sudden pain in her heart was somewhat unbearable. How did this happen? Nan Xian looked down at Feng Ruqing. This was the price he needed to bear for losing his main soul. Im fine? Nan Xian raised his hand and pulled Feng Ruqing into his arms. He held her tightly, afraid that she would disappear again. I'm glad that you could come back. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and embraced the man in front of her. His white hair brushed her eyes. It was harsh, like a thorn fiercely stuck in her heart. I'm sorry, Feng Ruqing lowered her eyes. I made you worry about me. Oh, how long have I been sleeping? 2 years? 2 years? Feng Ruqing stiffened as she raised her head. How many did you just say have passed? 2 years. Qinger, you have slept for 2 years and I have been here with you for 2 years. His main soul was in her body, and it also took him 2 whole years to find her. Feng Ruqing froze. But why do I feel as though only 2 days have passed? How has it been 2 years? How did time pass so quickly? The place you were in was all in your imagination. So the time there was all in your imagination. In reality, 2 years have passed. The 2 years she was in a coma, and there was no more laughter in general manner. Every day they were just waiting for the day she woke up. Fortunately, she finally returned. Their wait was worth it. Nan Xian once again hugged her tightly as if to hold her until the end of time, never to let go. Clang. Tang Yin came in with water and saw that Feng Ruqing had woken up. The water basin in her hand fell to the ground, and tears streamed down her face. In the past 2 years she would bring water to Nan Xian every day so that Nan Xian could wipe Xiaoqing down for her. After all, her Xiaoqing loved cleanliness so much. How could she stand not cleaning herself for 2 years? Me for extra chapters. She burst into tears and pounced toward Feng Ruqing. This time, Nan Xian did not throw Tang Yin out. He let go of his hand, allowing Tang Yin to jump into Feng Ruqing's embrace. Xiaoqing. Sobs, I thought I would never see you again. It's all my fault, Tang Yin cried miserably, her eyes were red. I'm glad I can still see you again. Xiaoqing, I will never be lazy again. These 2 years, I have been cultivating well so that I can protect myself in the future. I won't let you worry about me again. For 2 years she simply brought in the basin of water and would not disturb Nan Xian. She would then go out to cultivate. She used to be mischievous and playful, but all these behaviors had changed in the past 2 years. She only wanted to cultivate. She wanted to be stronger. She did not want the people she loved to get hurt again because of her. Feng Ruqing raised her hand, gently hugged Tang Yin in her arms. She lowered her eyes and smiled faintly. It's good that you're fine. Yes, as long as you are fine. Even if given another chance, and I will still choose to stand on your side. The moment she said that, Tang Yin abandoned everything and followed her. So she would never disappoint Tang Yin. Chapter 1876. Feng Chen might be in danger, mother? Xia ran in, looked at Tang Yin who was being held in Feng Ruqing's arms, and then looked at Nan Xian standing at the side. She pondered for a moment before walking up and jumping into Feng Ruqing's arms. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and hugged Xia tightly, taking the little girl into her arms along with Tang Yin. Xia lifted her cute little face and looked at Feng Ruqing pitifully. Mother, why have you been sleeping for so long? I came back and you didn't even pay attention to me, let alone look at me. Feng Ruqing looked down at the little girl in her embrace. It seemed that the 2 years she was away had indeed caused her family to worry. Where is grandfather? Feng Ruqing looked up at Nan Xian. Nan Xian's eyes turned cold. The person who leaked the news about Tang Yin is Nan Feng. Nan Feng leaked the news that Tang Yin was a beast man, thus causing Tang Yin to be attacked and Qing'er to fall asleep for 2 years to save her. Since that incident, Tianya has left General Manor to find the Nan family, and now everyone in the Nan family dares not show their faces again for fear of getting into trouble. No one from Nan City dared to come out of their hometown, afraid that they would meet the madman Tianya. And Nan Xian paused, looked at Feng Ruqing and continued with some hesitation. Feng Chen is here. Those people who were outside guarding General Manor back then were his men. Feng Ruqing trembled, she knew it. Only one person could do such a thing. However, she did not understand why Nan Xian needed to hesitate when he said this. It was because of this hesitation that made her a little panicked. What about Qing'er? Did something happen to him? Feng Ruqing got out of bed, walked to Nan Xian's side and tightly grabbed his hand. Tell me, did something happen to him? Qing'er, and Nan Xian's eyes darkened. His condition is not good, but it's not as bad as you think. I'll take you to see him later. All right. Feng Ruqing's heart was full of anxiety, and her eyes were filled with impatience. Mother, Xia raised her hand and tugged at Feng Ruqing's arm. She pursed her lips. I want to go with you. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing did not refuse, nodding slightly. She turned to look at Tang Yin. Tell Suyi, cousin Nailin, and the others that I am fine, but I must go to Qing'er now. He must be waiting for me too. In the previous life, her cheer spent his whole life protecting her. In this life, however, they became siblings once again. Feng Chen had long been an indispensable part of her life. She would not forget when she was in Huaxia. The young man under the tree reached his hand out to her and asked, Would you like to leave with me? We'll leave this home together. The young man's smile was like sunshine, lighting up her whole life and warming up everything she had. So, she followed him and left the place where there was no warmth anymore. Later, she left the young man, leaving him alone in the middle of that cold world. However, Feng Ruqing never thought that he would follow her to this mainland. Since they had reunited again in this life, she would cherish him and never leave him again alone. Chapter 1877 River of Blood Wuming City. It was located in the north of the mainland, surrounded by mountains, and was once a flourishing city. However, at this time Wuming City was already filled with blood and corpses. In the eastern part of Wuming City, many skilled masters gathered inside a broken tavern. Their eyes carried anger and resentment. A madman has killed so many people, now we have to hide in Wuming City, and no one dares to take a step outside. He will come after us. He's simply a madman. A devil. 2 years. Within these 2 years, this madman had killed nearly half of the people who attacked Feng Ruqing and Tang Yin back then. They hid in Wuming City surrounded by mountains and thought that he would not find them. But who knew that this madman would still find them? He is insane. If we continue to live like this, I'm afraid he will find this place sooner or later. We must do something. An elder in gray robes said viciously, and that bastard from the Nan family? He was the one who told us that there was a beast man in Tianya's manor, and now he doesn't stand up to fight the enemy together with us. The crowd fell silent. Indeed, it was all Nanfang's fault. In the end, he hid in his Nan city while this madman forced them to hide in Wu Ming city and did not dare to show their face. This was all Nan Fang's fault. If Nan Fang were in front of me today, I would definitely drag him down with us. A green-robed man said sorrowfully. However, no one answered him because everyone understood that there was no more chance. The battle outside the city gate was horrible. Everyone was dead and next it was almost their turn. Boom. The door was violently blown open. Everyone stiffened and looked up. At that moment, endless coldness spread throughout their bodies, making their faces pale, revealing a look of horror. At the door, the sunlight poured in and fell upon the young man's body. He was dressed in black. His face was handsome but cold with a pair of crimson eyes filled with fierce murderous intent. The young man, like a devil, stepped on the corpses and walked toward the crowd. The long sword in his hand was dripping with blood. Me for extra chapters. This madman was coming after them. He swung his long sword, slicing through a man's head, causing a splash of blood as the man fell to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere and filled the hearts of those who had plotted to escape with despair. There was no escape. This madman was like the god of death from hell. No matter where they ran to, he would find them. Once he targeted them, all of them could not escape. By the time the young man walked out again, it was nearly dusk. A flame burned up from behind him, burning the house and even the whole city. Wu Ming city would disappear from history. There are 10 more. The young man muttered as the bloody light in one of his eyes became even more intense, surpassing the bright haze in the sky. He stepped on the corpses, passing over their bodies with a cold and solemn face. Chapter 1878, River of Blood 2-inch. That's enough. Lu Yining ran from the front and stopped the young man from leaving. Tears flowed down her face that was pale with despair. Master Feng, you weren't like this before. He was a demon now. What was the difference between him and the ones they had met over the years? The young man did not look at her. Only murderous intent was left in his heart, and beyond that he could not see anything else. Not even Lu Yining could make him stop. Master Feng, do you really want to do this? Kill so many people? Tears of despair spread across Lu Yinyan's face. You've promised my father to take care of me. I'm begging you now, begging you to put aside your grudges, begging you to listen to my words and stop killing people. If the man who came for Master Feng back then is Tianya's grandson-in-law, it would have been nice if he had not left. He could have sealed the demon for Master Feng, but he left, causing Master Feng to become a demon who only knows how to kill and also put the world into chaos. Lu Yining clenched her fists with a gaze full of hatred. Master Feng turned out like this, because of that girl called Feng Ruching. Master Feng has become a demon because of her. Master Feng was a good man, he never killed people this much, but he has allowed the demon to take all his sanity because of her. So, this is her fault. There are still 10 left. Feng Chen looked up to the sky. The sunlight poured and enveloped his handsome but cold face. That's the last 10? He kept murmuring these words as if they were already ingrained in him, something he had to accomplish. Lu Yining trembled as she stepped forward again. This time she stood face to face with Feng Chen and blocked his path with her arm. You can't go. You can't kill anymore. At this moment she forgot that Feng Chen no longer knew anyone. Me for extra chapters. She also forgot that Feng Chen had witnessed those people killing the most important people in her life and that intense anger had made his heart obsessed with killing all those people. He would remain so. Feng Chen raised his hand and grabbed Lu Yinyan's neck. Lu Yining was a little suffocated. Her face turned red as she stared at Feng Chen with those stubborn eyes. She believed that she would be able to make him recover. It would not matter even if it cost her life. Unfortunately, Feng Chen did not let go of his hand and choked her hard, his eyes bloodshot. Lu Yining could feel the murderous intent in Feng Chen's eyes. This was the first time he treated her like this. No matter how much Feng Chen disliked her before, he had never hurt her. Master. Feng? Lu Yinyan's eyes were filled with tears, her gaze still stubborn. You promised, my grandfather, to take care of me. You promised, she begged him. Begged him to regain some sanity. She did not want him to kill any people again. Those people, even if they were not innocent, not all of them deserved to die. He had gotten his revenge and the last remaining 10 people should be allowed a chance to live. Chapter 1879. I've come to take you home. However, at this moment, Lu Yining only felt suffocated. It was as if she would be buried in Feng Chen's hands in the next second. Her eyes were filled with tears and she was stubbornly gazing at him. Perhaps until now Lu Yining still did not believe that Feng Chen would really want to kill her. Chainer? Suddenly, a voice came from the sky not far away. In this instant, Lu Yining felt the hand that grabbed her neck stiffen for a moment and slowly he let her go. Lu Yining fell to the ground, and the feeling of being able to breathe made her gulp desperately for air. Her face was no longer red. She looked up slowly in the direction where the voice had just come. In a moment, a stunning figure appeared. She was stunned seeing that face. Now I know why Master Feng cannot forget her. All men would fall in love with such a stunningly beautiful girl. Feng Ruqing stopped. Her grip on Xia Xia's small hand gradually loosened as she walked toward Feng Chen. Nan Xian watched Feng Ruqing's approach and did not stop her. He did not know how the demon had entered Feng Chen's body, but he knew the way to make Feng Chen recover. The only way. Feng Ruqing stood before Feng Chen. The young man's eyes were still red, and his face was stained with blood from the battle before. Chainer, I'm sorry that I found you so late. I'm sorry. She walked toward the young man, her gaze filled with guilt. If she could have found Chainer earlier, perhaps Chainer would not have become so. When she was in Huaxia, it was always Chainer who was protecting her. After coming to this mainland, similarly he was also struggling to protect her. So, in the future it must be her who protected him instead. Boom. Powerful energy surged out, and a storm picked up around the young man's body. He raised the sword in his hand and pointed it at the person in front of him. This was the first time Feng Chen pointed his sword at her. Even though he did not make any more moves to hurt her, this action still made Feng Ruqing's heart ache for a moment. It was not that Feng Chen had turned his sword on her that hurt her, but me for extra chapters. It was because she did not protect him well and let him suffer too much alone. Chainer, I am Feng Ruqing. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and grabbed the tip of his sword that was stretched out in front of her. Do you still remember all that we experienced in Sangyu mainland? Do you still remember the first time we met? She was not talking about the first time they met in Sangyu mainland. It was the moment her stepmother brought the young man to their house when she was in Huaxia. Feng Chen clutched the long sword hard, trembling. He then held his head tightly as pain suddenly attacked him. He could not think of anything, there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to kill all those people. And kill anyone who stopped him from killing them too. However, the voice in front of him was too familiar. It was so familiar that it penetrated his soul and brought a sense of familiarity to his mind. Chainer? Feng Ruqing raised her eyes. Her gaze was as firm as it was back then. I've come to take you home. Chapter 1880, I've come to take you home. Lu Yining was stunned. She looked at Feng Ruqing and then looked at Nan Xian, who stood in the sky and did not make any movements. Feng Ruqing and Master Feng are so close, is he not jealous? Lu Yining did not know the relationship between Feng Chen and Feng Ruqing, and she thought it a coincidence that they shared a family name. The demon had grown inside Feng Chen's body when he knew Feng Ruqing's whereabouts. He was afraid of hurting her, so he did not dare to meet her. Therefore he did not tell Lu Yining anything about his life. Otherwise Lu Yining would find Feng Ruqing. So, Lu Yining had always thought that Feng Ruqing was the girl Feng Chen loved but had married someone else as Feng Chen sent his men to watch her secretly. The young man looked up and stared hard at the woman in front of him. Perhaps the sword was too sharp that blood seeped from the woman's palm. It felt like a needle ruthlessly stuck in the young man's heart. Chinger, Nan Xian landed next to Feng Ruqing. He gently pressed her hand that was clutching the long sword. Let go. The only person who could make Feng Chen regain his sanity was Feng Ruqing. However, he would not allow Feng Ruqing to do something that hurt herself. Chainer. Feng Ruqing looked up a little at Feng Chen. The sword is in your hand. If you really don't even recognize me anymore, you can use it to hurt me. I won't resist. After all, it's me who failed to protect you. If I had found you earlier, you wouldn't have turned out like this. Lu Yining wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and stood up from the ground. She sneered and looked at Feng Ruqing. It is indeed your fault that he became like this? Nan Xian glanced at Lu Yining coldly. His eyes were cold, filled with murderous intent. However, he did not dare to leave Feng Ruqing's side, afraid that Feng Ruqing would do something to hurt herself for Feng Chen. He can't get angry, let alone use his spiritual power. Otherwise, the demon will grow stronger and take over his body. Lu Yining said coldly, but because of you? Because of all the situations that happened to you? He was angry all the time. He could not control his emotion. Initially, your husband was able to seal the demon for him temporarily. If it were not for your accident, they would not have left so anxiously. It's you who has turned him into the devil. Do you know how many people he has killed for you? Feng Ruqing looked at Lu Yining coldly and once again turned to Feng Chen. She came to take Feng Chen with her, only that mattered to her now. She had no time to deal with others. Me for extra chapters. Chainer, Feng Ruqing smiled faintly. Look, Xia has grown so big and I found our grandfather. Father and mother are waiting for us. Our family will soon be reunited. Chainer, let's go home? Lu Yining froze. Our grandfather? Father and mother? What does Feng Ruqing mean by these words? What does her grandfather have to do with Master Feng? Isn't Master Feng's family not here? Uncle. Xia pounced toward Feng Chen and hugged his leg tightly. There was no fear on her adorable face. Chapter 1881. I've come to take you home, uncle. Mother will be sad if you continue to be like this. Xia doesn't want mother to be sad. If mother is unhappy, our whole family will not be happy. Uncle? Lu Yinyin's breathing grew heavy. Her face paled as she took a few steps back. Why did Feng Ruqing's daughter call him uncle? Qing, the young man lowered his eyes and looked at Feng Ruqing's face. Qing? Tears almost fell from her eyes. However, she held it back. Yes, I'm here. Qing, the long sword slipped out of the young man's hand. His heart ached as his eyes fell upon Feng Ruqing's bleeding palm. Qing, he kept murmuring her name. It seemed that he could only remember her name. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and pulled the young man into her arms. He's so thin now. I don't know what he has gone through in the past 2 years. Chainer, come home with me. All right. The young man's voice was a little hoarse and he looked at Feng Ruqing unblinkingly. Master Feng? Lu Yining panicked and dashed up, trying to block the way. Master Feng, what about me? You promised my grandfather. He promised to take care of her for the rest of her life. Feng Ruqing looked at Lu Yining with a puzzled gaze. She frowned. Chainer, who is she? Feng Chen looked at Lu Yining and shook his head. I don't know her. You don't know her? Feng Ruqing was stunned and pointed to Nan Xian. Who is he? Do you still remember him? Feng Chen looked puzzled. He raised his eyes to look at Nan Xian, pondered for a short while. I don't remember him. Feng Ruqing froze. So Chainer does not know anyone except me? Nan Xian took out a bottle of spiritual liquid from somewhere and applied it to Feng Ruqing's palm. The wound in her palm healed at speed, visible to the naked eye. Me for extra chapters. Chinger, take Chainer away now. I have some things to take care of. We'll catch up soon. All right, Feng Ruqing did not ask more questions. She took Xia's hand with one hand and grabbed Feng Chen with the other, smiling faintly. Chainer, let's go home first. Oh. Feng Chen nodded obediently like a child and followed Feng Ruqing. A smile appeared on his face. The smile was warm like the spring breeze. Nan Xian turned to Lu Yining after Feng Ruqing and Feng Chen had left. He walked toward her slowly. His cold face made her heart panic. Lu Yining trembled and she seemed somewhat frightened as she looked at Nan Xian. Nan Xian was expressionless. First you stopped me from leaving, but I stayed to save Feng Chen. Then you tried to stop Feng Chen and me from saving Chinger, but I was in a hurry to get to her, so I didn't have time to deal with you. This is the third time you have tried to stop us again, and Nan Xian sounded indifferent. You spoke ill of Chinger. Chapter 1882. No one is allowed to insult her. Her body trembled harder as Nan Xian walked toward her. She looked up at the man standing in front of her with a pale face. These days Feng Chen is indeed in a bad state, but to me he did nothing wrong. He didn't kill the innocents. The ones he killed were the ones who almost killed Chinger. Lu Yining bit her lip hard. But he has gotten his revenge. There is no need to kill everyone. If Master Feng were healthy he would never have killed so many people. Nan Xian's face was cold, expressionless. How well do you know Feng Chen? Back then he did not know that Chinger was his own sister. He could disregard everything for her. He abandoned his adoptive parents and fought for her against the world. Do you think you truly know him? Do you think Feng Chen would not kill those people who hurt her when he recovers? The man's white robe rippled in the breeze. His voice was cold. He had no mercy on people who hurt Feng Ruqing. Just like Tianya, all people in this mainland knew that Tianya was an upstanding man. However, once he had someone to protect, he would give up all his righteousness for her. Lu Yinyin's face was pale. No, I know Master Feng. He's a kind man and will not kill at will. That's because no one has ever offended Chinger. If someone offends her, all the integrity will be left behind. I don't care what relationship you once had with Feng Qin or who asked Feng Qin to take care of you. I will never allow anyone to humiliate Qing'er. I believe that Feng Qin will not forgive you for this. Lu Yining looked down and clenched her fists tightly. Master Feng did not tell me that she's his sister. So what if she is and so what if she isn't? Even if she's not Feng Qian's sister, you've no right to insult her. Nan Xian raised her sleeve and a light flashed, instantly causing Lu Yinyan's body to be lifted from the ground. Her body trembled and her courage to even stand up disappeared. I just felt sorry for Master Feng. I didn't mean anything else. After all, what has happened to Master Feng was all because of her. Really? Nan Xian sneered. Tianya's men have already checked. The reason why the demon got into his body in the first place was because of you. You touched the demon and when Feng Qin saved you, it entered his body. Lu Yining was stunned. She stared at Nan Xian blankly, unable to say a word. Me for extra chapters. What makes you think it was Qing'er who harmed him? Why didn't you ever think it was your own doing? Nan Xian moved closer to Lu Yining. I knew that your grandfather saved Feng Qin. He had repaid the gratitude when he saved you from the demon's seed. He owes you nothing. Feng Qin always keeps his promises, so he still kept you around to take care of you. Feng Qin was Qing'er's brother. So, he would not allow anyone to take advantage of Feng Qin. Your ignorance has put him in harm's way, and you have put all the blame on Qing'er. I won't hurt you for Feng Qin's sake, but you are not allowed to appear in his life ever again from now on. Otherwise, he raised his hand and chopped a tree by the road. It fell to the ground with a loud thud. You'll become like this tree? Nan Xian turned away without so much as a second glance and disappeared with the breeze after saying that. Qing'er has been in a coma for the past 2 years, unable to treat you. Now that Qing'er has returned, I believe that with her ability, you will recover your strength soon. Hearing these words, old Master Nan also quietly sighed in relief. He also wished to recover quickly, but he did not want to pressure Suyi and the girls. When Suyi was done speaking, she looked up and coincidentally saw Feng Ruqing walking with Nan Xian. She was holding a cute little girl, followed by a young man with eyes as clear as water. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.